at the coastal region. And to Parliament now, let's link up with the senior parliamentary reporter Patrick Amimo, live for us from our city centre studios. Amimo, what do we have in the National Assembly today?
Michelle, it's in fact the Parliament, as it resumes this particular week, we've seen various committees will be sitting because, as it were, we now having a Parliament that processes most of its work through the committees as per the 2010 Constitution. So various committees are meeting to look into various issues, like we have the Public Investments Committee, which will be looking into audit queries of various institutions like the Kibabi University, and also that on the medical board. We also have that committee on implementation, which will also be looking into various aspects with regard to how the law that has been passed by the House has been adhered to. We'll also be having the Committee of Health in the National Assembly, also trying to look at the idea of the universal health coverage, how it's being implemented across the country, because we already have 4 counties which were picked as satellite to be pilot counties on this particular universal healthcare program. But now the Committee on Health will be looking into it and get to know the challenges that are facing this particular project and how to move forward before it's rolled out to the entire, through the rest of the country, the remaining 43 counties. Also, the Senate will be resuming its sittings this afternoon after 10 days break. Last week, most of the senators, after they took their break, they went to Kirinyaga to attend the devolution conference. The Senate is a house that oversees activities in the county assemblies, and it was very, very critical for members of the Senate to converge with their counterparts in Kirinyaga during the devolution conference that touched on various issues on matters devolution, corruption in the counties, and how also employment of staff in the counties. And this afternoon also in the Senate, where they'll be looking at that county, the county government bill, which sets procedure on how the deputy governors can be appointed and or be fired. The same for the governors and also other members like the Speaker and other ministers or cabinet secretaries who work under the county government. So the Senate will also be looking into that particular bill and see how the various amendments that can come to it to improve the situation, because as it were, currently we've seen a county like Nairobi where we have Governor Mike Songo, who is only running the show as a sole person without a deputy, and that particular matter, that particular area needs to be tackled and addressed so that we don't have a situation where it's only a one-man show running a county, as it is the case of Nairobi presently. So we've also had cases where deputy governors complain that they are neglected, they are not given any role to play in the running of affairs in their counties, and they are at the mercy of governors. So this particular county, the county assembly bill that is before the Senate, will be looking at how the deputy governors can be empowered and be given something at least to work onto as they discharge their duties during their tenure in office, which is a 5-year span. If you can imagine that for 5 years, maybe you are at the mercy of a governor who does not even give you something to work on. You are just there to be seen and not to be heard. So these are some of the inadequacies in law that the Senate is trying to address and ensure that at least these officials are brought on board, so that even when they earn their salary, they feel entitled to it, that it is rightfully earned. Also looking at it today in the National Assembly, we expect the Speaker this afternoon to deliver a ruling on those controversial aspects, the two reports we had in the National Assembly. One, that of Public Accounts Committee touching on the IEBC, because it had recommended that Chebukati and his team, the 2 commissioners, should be kicked out of office, because they say as it is currently constituted, it cannot make any policy decisions that have far-reaching implications, yet the country is heading towards a population census and also the delimitation of boundaries. So it means they want members, there's a section of members that are of the opinion that Chebukati and his team should be kicked out and join the 4 of the commissioners who earlier 2 years ago left office, and there are those who have opinion that that matter should falls before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, which is the one that oversights IEBC. So it is a matter that the Speaker last week listened to that particular debate and said this week he expects to make a ruling on which committee should be given that particular mandate. Remember again that particular IEBC is an independent office under the Constitution, and Article 251 states clearly on how commissioners can be kicked out of office. So it's not a walk in the walk in the park is something that really needs to really follow procedure. And we've seen the Chebukati team maintain that they are still insisting that they are in office despite the push and pull that they get out of office. So it's something that we expect the Speaker to give a ruling on. And the other report also that generated a lot of controversy in the House last week was to do with the take over the plan by the Kenya Airways to take over operations at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It is a matter that we saw last week. Workers go on strike, and also operations at the airport have not resumed fully because the workers, the union officials, are still in custody. They were in court, and the court decided that they remain in custody for 10 days. And for members, that strike can only be called off by the union officials. So as long as the members are still in custody, it means matters at our international airport are still in a catch-22 situation. Operations are not really back to normal as such. So that particular report that by the Public Investments Committee, it had given its preliminary report on that matter, seeking Parliament's approval to stop that particular proposal by JKIA, by Kenya Airways to take over operations of our main airport, because they said Kenya Airways is a loss-making entity and it cannot take over operations of Kenya Airways Authority, Kenya Airports Authority, which at least gets almost 10 billion shillings in revenue each year. So it's a profit-making entity, yet Kenya Airways is a loss-making entity. Again, it appears, it also happens that Kenya Airways owes Kenya Airports Authority 3.8 billion shillings. So it's a matter that members of Parliament are of the view that this particular transaction should be stopped because, again, it's shrouded in secrecy. We saw the Transport Committee was also being seized of this particular matter, and its chairman, David Kosin, said that it was very, very difficult for his committee to get some of those reports or documents, especially on that particular cabinet memo, which is quoted that it was a matter that was discussed at the cabinet level May last year. But that particular document, the committee, it was very, very difficult for the Minister of Transport to give that committee, that particular Transport Committee, that particular report to scrutinize and see how this particular proposal came into fruition. So these particular two committees, that Public Investments Committee and the Transport Committee, have also been seized of this particular matter. But then the issue here is which committee should be given the go-ahead and to investigate this particular matter that has created controversy at our airports and paralyzed operations as we saw last week. So the Speaker will also be giving away a ruling on this particular matter on which committee, either if the members will have that opportunity to discuss that preliminary report by the Public Investments Committee, and or they'll wait for the Transport Committee, which is yet to start delving deeper into this particular aspect, that mandate to look into it. But as it were, the Public Investments Committee argues that as it is the committee that is mandated to look at whether there is value for money for Kenyans, and because when they were still interrogating the Auditor General's report, they came into this particular proposal by Kenya Airways to take over operations of the Kenya Airports Authority, and they say as a committee mandated with the oversight investments, they want to ensure that a Kenyan taxpayer does not lose money in this particular shady deal. So it is a matter that will be for the House, for members to interrogate. It's really generated a lot of heat on the floor of the House, and it's something that we've also seen at the the workers at the airport, also who are members of the union, also go on strike. The matter is before the court. That takeover bid is before the courts. The courts are yet to decide on how that particular matter should be addressed. The Kenya Airports Authority also says it has not fully supported that takeover bid. So it's something we'll be looking at to see how the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, will make his ruling on these particular two areas which are really contentious in the House, because we saw members were of the view that probably the House leadership wanted to gag them from discussing these two critical reports that are before the House. Michelle.
And remember, just before I let you go, late last month, we had the Senate Security Committee raise concerns over the ongoing Huduma Number project, one that has already kicked off in 15 counties. And it was one that the Senate Security Committee was to continue probing. Where is the status of that probe as we speak?
That particular meeting where the Senate wanted to meet, that the CS Interior, the CS did not appear before the committee. He snubbed the invite, and members of the Senate were very much were not happy about that action by the CS Interior, that is Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and that's why the senators said that that particular Huduma number should stop until the Senate is seized of the matter and discusses it. It's yet, that particular committee is yet to give a date on when they'll be inviting CS Matiang'i before it. I remember also this particular CS Matiang'i has been very, very tricky or very, very slippery when it comes to attending parliamentary sessions, or most of the time when he's invited, is skipped most of the sessions, and it's really hard. Members of parliament, both in the National Assembly and the Senate, have had a rough time trying to whip the member or this particular CS to appear before the committees, because as it were, as I said, committees, now most of the work of parliament is done through committees, unlike in the past, in the previous setup where we had ministers, sitting members of parliament being also appointed to be ministers. So that time it was easy for them to interact with members to answer to their questions. But this time, under the committee system, it is the particular relevant committees which are mandated that particular duty. Whenever a member asks a question, it's forwarded to a particular committee to address. So that particular committee, it has that mandate to invite a cabinet secretary to answer to those questions. So when, like this case where Matiang'i decided to skip that particular invite, he really invited the anchor of members, and they said the Huduma number process must stop until he appears before the Senate to shed more light on it, because it's a controversial thing. We've seen a section of Kenyans oppose it. It's a matter that is also before the court. We saw the LSK, the Law Society of Kenya, is seized of the matter. The Kenya National Human Rights Commission is also seized of the matter. They don't really understand why Kenyans should spend 6 billion shillings in a matter that is also shrouded in secrecy, yet many Kenyans have registered their numbers on various platforms. We have the personal identification number for those who pay taxes. We have the national ID with their numbers. We have NHIF. When we register with NHIF, you have your number. When you register with NSSF, you have your number. So they really also, there's a concern about this multiplicity of these particular numbers, and they have concerns that maybe someone wants to make a quick buck out of this particular project, and especially when it's attracting 6 billion shillings. It's a very, very attractive such a venture. So that's the matter that the Senate will be looking at. Michelle.
Many thanks. That is our senior parliamentary reporter Patrick Amim with an outlook of what is